I've heard a couple times used, you don't owe me anything, and you certainly don't owe the other agent anything. What you owe is your family. To me, it sounds a little like you don't tell me what I owe and who I owe it to.
Right.
And that would kind of set me off and really shut me down really quick. And I find myself to be um, really easygoing. So if it's someone like an Aaron, I would assume it would also shut him down too. Number two is a question. Um, are any of you familiar, and what is your take on the Chris Voss and I forget his other co-authors take on the favorite and the fool? If they've already indicated they already have a favorite, then why do we want to insist on possibly being the fool and wasting the time unless we have nothing else better to do? We have zero other prospects to meet with, and we just need to practice in front of somebody. I get that. But other than that, would you continue to push for the appointment if there's already a favorite that's going to get the listing more often than not?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, like, when do you actually say next?
Yeah.
So were you saying, yeah, yeah. I think if they're still on the phone with you, and if you somehow create doubt and give them a carrot, if they bite on that, I think there's an opportunity there. So let's say, for example, you could test their loyalty, right, Christopher? Let me ask you a question. If I could give you, because we were able to sell our homes that we list for 102.5% over asking price. Let me ask you a question. If I can get you, in this case, $50,000 more than what you're really asking for, would you want to know about how?
Yes.
And then if you say, no, not a chance, my friend, we're going to go with him, absolutely, then they're the favorite. I'm the fool. I'm out of here.
Understood. Yeah.
I don't know. So,
Yeah.
and your first comment about setting people off, Jose, what do you think about that?
I don't really say the line, hey, like, you don't owe me anything. Or I personally don't say that one, but I think when you're prospecting, you do have to be careful about certain triggers that set people off. And it's funny because at the very beginning of my career, I would almost like create my own objections. And I would find myself getting the same objections over and over. And the reason was that I was kind of setting myself up for those. So maybe instead of that line, I would maybe use hey, look, what if there was a win-win? What if there was a way where we can structure this in a win-win situation where everybody wins? What do you mean by that? What if there was a way where we could still work together and your agent can still be involved in the deal and still get paid in the deal, and you could still make more money on the sale of your property? Is that something that you would be open to? I've heard you don't owe me anything, I don't owe you, or hey, here's a context where I've kind of heard it, and here's the way I would probably phrase it. Well, look, here's the reality, Jose. This is not about me, and it's not about the other agent. This is really about you, and it's about you and your family and helping you guys accomplish your goals, which I would imagine that your goal is to make as much money as possible. So let me ask you this. If there was a way where we could all win, your other agent could win, I could win, you could win by making more money, is that something that you would be open to?
I like it like that.
It's more casual, but same concept.
Yeah, it's kind of very similar, but it's not like, hey, you don't owe me anything. You don't owe the other agent anything. And it's funny because this is one of those things where I know that there's so many different angles to take on the I've already got another agent. I did this for the CMA script where I kind of typed up all the different angles. I went back and kind of thought about it. And I'm like, okay, this is one of the ones that I would love to do. And I'm probably going to end up doing like a webinar on it at some point, maybe not this month, but maybe next month, where I kind of take all the different things and type it up if they say this and say that. I'll answer the other question about the full and the favorite. I started being more selective as to which ones I go on. Like if they're like, look, Jose, like, no, my friend is the one that I'm going to work with. Like, no way I'm working with you. It's a judgment call. But if they give me any sort of opening, like if I ask, like, hey, look, if there was a financial benefit to getting more money, would you be open to that? Hey, if there was a way where I can guarantee you more money, if there was a way where I can put more money in your pocket, would you be open to that? If they're like, maybe, or if they start saying, well, like maybe I'm not really as committed to my friend, or if I can make X amount of money, that would be helpful. That's what I'm looking for. Or if they start asking me questions like buying signals. Well, how much commission do you charge? How much, what company do you work for again? Those are all buying signals that people start asking you that, especially the commission one. They start asking you that because something that you said was of interest to them, and they're probably getting a discount from their agent. I'll give you guys an example. Like I literally just went on one. I was following up with the guy. They're like, hey, my aunt's getting surgery. And then he hits me with like, look, I'm going to be very transparent with you. The house is under the aunt's name. He's like, somebody recommended somebody else to the aunt, and she's very likely going to go with him. And I'm like, look, I'm not asking for any sort, or I said, hey, look, what most sellers do is they typically interview more than one agent just to make sure that they're getting the best price, the best commission, and the best marketing. Is that something that you're open to? And he's like, well, look, I don't want to waste your time. And then I basically said, like, if there was a financial benefit, meaning like if you could net more money, would you be open? He's like, yeah, I would, but I'm going to be very honest with you, Jose. It's kind of like a long shot just because that other person was referred, and I'm pretty confident that we're going to go with them. But the fact that he was like, hey, I'm open to it. And he's like, I'm open to making more money. I went out there. And the reality is that I'm so confident in the services that we have to offer, and I'm confident in my abilities to present, that it's very likely, at least yesterday, he gave me the green light, said he's signing the contract today via DigiSign. I'm pretty confident I'm going to get it. But it also requires that you get really good at your presentation, that you get really, really good. And I could think, like, it was funny because very early on, I had a coach, and I had a client that was a probate, and the client was like, look, Jose, I'm not listing my property with you. I already have an agent, but I still want to meet with you. And I asked my coach, and I said, Coach, should I meet with him? He says he's not listing the property with me, yet he says he wants to meet with me. And he goes, Jose, if he's coming to your office, it's for a reason. And there's something going on there. Let him come to your office. Comes to my office, signs the contract. And I'm like, and the reason was that he didn't trust the fact that the attorney recommended that real estate agent, and he wanted somebody different. And I hit on that point, and I ended up like being like, God. So I think that full and the favorite is a very good. And I think that there are certain cases where you're kind of pushing yourself on an appointment. And this year I could probably see myself being like, why did I come on this appointment like 2 or 3 times, where it was kind of just like, I kind of forced my way in there. But looking back at the pattern, they never gave me an opening. It was like, no. And I was just so persistent. They were like, all right, if you want to come over, waste your time, go for it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I would just be careful with like talking yourself out of appointments that could potentially be valid business. Because if you think about it, like in our market, we went from 9,000 sales to 5,000 sales. You think we're going to be competing in most instances?
Yeah.
It's going to be very rare when you're like the only agent that they're talking to. Very rare. In most instances, you're going to be competing. And then it just comes down to having a rock solid presentation. I had a client one time where we ran the objection handler, the I've already got another agent. She had already worked with that agent 3 times, Chris. 3
Wow.
times.
And you
And
still
I got it. Yeah, I found an angle. One of my best clients, bro. I bought a property from her, meaning like she found a fixer upper, didn't want to buy it herself, referred it to me, and has maybe sold and bought like 3 or 4 properties from me.
wow.
All from that one conversation of pushing through.
Yeah. So the nugget is there is the mental jujitsu to figure out to know the words or the triggers to drop to see if there's any buying signals,
Yeah.
to know shift and know what question to ask.
I think most people give up way too soon. So I think in that one, bro, it's like having multiple layers of objection handlers. Like most if they're like, hey, look, I'm not open to it, or like, hey, I'm not sure if you're open to this. Here's what most sellers do. Most sellers typically take the time to interview a couple of different agents to get a couple of different opinions about price, commission, and marketing. Is that something that you're open to? No, I'm not. Okay, the only reason I ask is a lot of the properties that we list, we sell them above the asking price. Let me give you a quick example. This is a property that we listed recently. We listed it at X, sold it at Y. Here's another property. We listed at X, sold it at Y. If I can help you make an extra $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, would you be open to that? No, I would not. Okay, not a problem. You ask a couple extra questions. Here's the good news for you. I'm not asking for any sort of commitment from you. I'm not asking for you to sign a contract. I'm not asking for you to even work with me. All I'm asking is for an opportunity to interview. Here's the worst case scenario. You could take the information that I give you. You can still work with your agent, but at least this way you've interviewed one of the top agents in town. Do you really have anything to lose by interviewing somebody that has sold close to 1,000 properties in their career? No, I don't. Okay, can I make a recommendation? If we were to get together, is there typically a day and time of the day that would work out better for you? No, I would not. I wouldn't be open to it. Hey, just out of curiosity, how long have you been working with that agent? How do you know this agent? What's the relationship? Once again, you go back to, hey, and if there was a financial benefit to doing something, would you be open to that? But notice how that's already like 4 or 5 different layers, bro.
Yeah.
You see? It's already like you've gone rejected like 4 or 5 different times on that one. It's funny because a lot of some of the EXP agents would send me deals and then I would convert them because they would send me deals that like, hey, look, this guy already has an agent. And my feedback to them was like, you're giving up on them way too early.
Likely. Yeah.
That was the feedback to them. So then if you're giving up on them way too early, as long as they haven't signed anything, if they signed anything, it's dead. Just so you guys know. Dead. No more. But I just want to be clear on that so nobody misinterprets this message in any way, shape, or form. But what I told them, I'm like, you're giving up on them way too early, you know? Like they tell you that, you stop calling them, and then basically like they end up listing with another agent, not even the person that they were talking about. Not only that, but you'd be surprised. Like I had a different one where I showed up to his door and he was like, no, 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 no. I knew he was going to do something. I show up to his door, show him some of the marketing samples, still tells me no. And like 2 weeks later, he calls me like, Jose, I don't like my agent anymore. He did this. I'm like, he did what? Really? And then he goes, I want to work with you. And then after that, it was a done deal.
Yeah. That's
you know?
happened.
Yeah. So it's like, it's not giving up on them and pushing past the point where it gets a little bit uncomfortable, knowing that there's a big reward and that big reward could lead to 3 or 4 or 5 more deals. Like it has for me. Like I look back like at a deal where I was competing and that deal turned into 3 more deals after that. So whenever we miss out on a deal, guys, it's not just one deal that we're missing out. We're missing out on the compounding of that deal. We're missing out on the 2 or 3 babies that deal produces.
Yeah.
Go
I
ahead.
think what happens is that we don't want to be aggressive and perceived at times. And, I've seen you do it in front of me where you were so aggressive in not in a unprofessional way, but to where the lady like started laughing and actually respected it. Because she told you like, no, I'm not gonna, I know where I'm going, but you had not only your like 4 or 5 handlers, you kept going until finally to the point where you realized there was no more. It wasn't going to happen.
And I think it's the way you communicate things to people. And it's your ability to stay away from things that are going to trigger people, but it's the presentation. That's an entire script that I've practiced hundreds of times, So when it comes up, I'm polished on it because I know how valuable that script is because hey, maybe I get that objection 10 times and maybe I push through it all the times and maybe I get 3 out of those 10. It doesn't seem like a lot, but those 3 could be an extra $60,000,
And what the hell do you have to lose?
Yeah, but it is the way that I think you present it. It's funny because Heather was with me from our EXP family on one where the lady was like, no, 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 no. And then I pushed through it. She goes, all right, come over. I'll interview you. She interviews me, loves the services that we have to offer, hires me, and then it turns into a great deal and it turns into a raving fan after that. So I think, let me see who I had.
Yeah, I had one more question. I guess so that was my number one objection I'm getting this year.
Hey, Rosie.
Yeah.
It's a good thing, man.
Yeah.
That is a good thing. And that is, those are the hottest people.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
I lost 5 deals, 107,000 in commission from just not learning that one.
You didn't lose anything, Roji. You never had it. You can't lose anything you don't have. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So what I was saying was I have a business. I have a friend of the business was number 1. Number 2, I lost another 2 deal or missed out on the other 2 deal. And then I saw this happening yesterday with one of my colleagues he was talking to the seller and was like, well, you're not from this area. You're in Hermosa Beach. This house is in San Fernando Valley, which is like an hour and a half away. And that was like the thing, like he was talking to the seller and he was catching interest up until the point where like, where's your office? And my friend was like, well, we're located in Hermosa Beach, but we've done deals everywhere in California or in LA County. And that's when the seller was like, well, we want to go with someone that's more local. And
yeah. So there's 2 different, so you want to, how we would handle that. So there's 2 different ways of handling that. Number 1, if you're in a town like Hermosa Beach, there's a benefit to being in a town like Hermosa Beach, So the way I would handle it and be like, okay, so, and I would preface it like this. So I would almost be like, okay, that's a really good question. This might be a deal breaker for you. I would say that from the beginning. If my office is in Hermosa Beach and they're asking me that, and I think that that's going to be an issue for them, with a lot of times that they ask you that question, it's going to be an issue. So I would say, hey, let me explain it this way. Roji, if I were to say, hey, Roji, if you ask me a question, I'm like, hey, Roji, this might be a deal breaker for you, but this is blah, 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 blah. What I typically get is like, oh, no, that's not a deal breaker for me. Because I've already told them this might be a deal breaker for you. So I would preface it that way. Well, look, Roji, that's a really good question. This may be a deal breaker for you. My office is actually in Hermosa Beach, but here's the benefit of hiring somebody from Hermosa Beach. Most sellers typically hire somebody that specializes in their local area, like the San Fernando Valley. The challenge with that is that those agents only attract buyers from the San Fernando Valley. What I'm noticing is that right now there's a lot of buyers relocating from different parts of town. So for example, there's buyers relocating from Hermosa Beach to the San Fernando Valley. There's buyers relocating from Westlake Village to the San Fernando Valley. So the benefit to you is that because I cover a much larger area, you're able to attract buyers from a much larger pool. Not only that, but the median home price in Hermosa Beach is 2.5 million, meaning I can attract buyers in higher price points to your property. Is that a benefit to you? Or is that something that you would be open to? What do you think about that one?
It's true. I mean, the average price is a lot higher here, so there's
So you're
awesome.
able to attract
Right.
buyers from much higher price points, and that's one of the benefits. Like, so when my office used to be in Oxnard, that was one of the challenges that I had with Camarillo, Westlake, because people perceived Oxnard to be like almost like an inferior town. So when I moved to Camarillo, I stopped getting that objection of the Oxnard office. And I started getting and when I went to Oxnard, nobody looked down on Camarillo from Oxnard. They were like, oh, Camarillo, great. People usually want to move to Camarillo. The other way of handling it is one of the benefits that EXP has is that it has a relationship with Regis. And Regis is we share like an office where they have multiple offices throughout Southern California. So when I used to be with my previous company, they had multiple offices through Southern California. So on a white piece of paper, I would have a list of all of our offices with Regis or with my previous company. Now what I've done is, and it's in our script book, I made a list of all of the EXP offices that we have in Southern California. So now I know we have an office in Westlake Village because there's somebody there with an EXP office. Stephen Christie. There's an office in Simi Valley. There's Prima and I forgot the other guy's name. They have an office in Simi Valley. We have an office in Camarillo. Our other partner has an office in Oxnard. So instead of saying, hey, look, like let's say the appointment's in Thousand Oaks, I may say, well, look, my office is actually in Westlake Village. It's right off of Russell Ranch Road, right off the corner of blank and blank. But I had that in a white piece of paper. Or I may say something like, look, we have multiple offices throughout Southern California. Our closest office to you is the location on 123 Russell Ranch Road, right off the corner. And on the script, I even put right off the corner of East Los Angeles and blank. And I on the script, I may say, do you know where the Popeyes is in Simi Valley? Do you know where the Popeyes and Subway is in Simi Valley? Yes, that's where our office is located. Boom, solves it. I'm pretty confident that Prima would allow me to meet a client at their office if I needed to. I'm pretty confident that Steven would allow me to meet with a client if I needed to. And vice versa as well, too.
Got it.
So those are two different ways of handling it that I believe would potentially add a little bit of extra money in your pocket.
And then you would still do the Hail Mary of referring it. I mean, obviously, if you went that route and they kept saying like, we need someone really, really local, because that's what my friend did. He called what's his name, Stephen Christie's office.
Yeah.
Said, hey, like, do you guys do Tarzana? I was like, well, it's not our main spot, but we can do Tarzana.
Yeah.
But it wasn't him. It was like his assistant or one of his agent, and he couldn't close him yesterday. So
Yeah.
it's like up in the air right now.
It's still good. So in that case, I
have a listing in Woodland Hills. If you want to give it another go, I'm willing to pay you 30%.
I love it.
Yeah. Tarzana's area. It's close, right?
Tarzana's right next door.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll let my
So
friend.
yeah, that's the way I would handle that. And then just know that whenever you refer agents out, in some cases, I refer agents that are non-EXP. I don't really care if they're EXP or not. I just care about who's got the highest likelihood of closing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Who's got the highest likelihood of closing it? If it's an EXP agent, great. If it's not, if it's somebody else, hey, Whoever's got the highest likelihood of closing it and providing the best service to the client. That's who I want.
Objections, questions. Go ahead, Chris.
Outside of listings, I'm having troubles getting a buyer to actually get pre-approved with the loan officer I put him with. Every day he says he's going to do it, and every day he doesn't do it. It's a $2 to $3 million sale, which is why I'm still hanging around. They've just moved from California, San Diego over here. I know they need to buy, so I know that the motivation is mostly there. I know the wife really wants to buy. Otherwise, they're going to be moving 2 to 3 times because of rentals. But I just can't get him to actually fill out the damn application and submit the paperwork. He just won't simply do it, but he still wants to go see properties. Now his wife wants to see properties. And I can't figure out how else to tell him we need this without actually telling him I'm not going to do it anymore.
Yeah. He's probably telling you like, hey, look, I won't have a problem qualifying. Like, hey, I'm rock solid. I won't have a problem.
Yeah, that, and I've been super busy with the move, the truck, the 7 kids. He's always got an excuse. And I'm sure he feels he's not going to have a problem with it, but he's self-employed. He owns a business. So we all know that that can be really complicated.
Yeah. So whenever you pitch getting to a loan officer, tell me how you're pitching it. There's got to be and just so you know, there's got to be a benefit to them of meeting with the loan officer. Yeah.
So for context, like they've already met and spoken over the phone. He says he's great. He's a great referral. He loves him. And
the loan officer?
Yeah. The prospect, the buyer, has told me that he loves Tom, my loan officer. So the introduction went well, and how I did it was he was trying to get a pre-approval from his bank in La Jolla. I said, look, go ahead and do that. That's fine. If you don't mind making a recommendation, usually local lenders have better service and can provide you equal or better rates. And to close, when we get the appraisal, they're having relationships with local appraisals is really what's going to help you get the deal done. The bank in California doesn't even know where their appraiser is from, and if that appraiser even knows the area that we need the appraisal done for.
Or even the insurance in Florida, you know?
Yeah, insurance in Florida, all of that. But I'm mostly hanging on the appraisal and service, the time difference, all that. And he was okay with it, so I introduced him, and it took him maybe about a week to speak to him, but he finally did. He's like, hey, man, Tom's a great referral. He really knows his stuff. I really appreciate it. He's great. He gave me great options, great rates.
What did Tom say about the client? Did Tom say he's a good candidate to purchase, or did he say, hey, look,
he hasn't provided him anything.
Huh?
He hasn't provided him anything.
In the conversation, did they get into any numbers or anything like that?
Yeah. So in conversation, he sounds in theory like a great borrower, but he hasn't provided any documentation. And we all know that conversation and reality can be 2 different things.
Yeah.
You know, the K1 may read different, or he may not be able to get that distribution.
Yeah. So usually the benefit so I think you've done a good job in selling them to your loan officer. That's a good job there. Here's the other selling him on. So, hey, Chris, can I make a recommendation to you?
Sure.
So here is my fear for you and your family. So let's say we go out and take a look at properties tomorrow, right? And you fall in love with the property and you say, Chris, I want to submit an offer on the property. The very first thing that the listing agent is going to ask me for if I submit an offer is a pre-approval letter.
Right.
The challenge that I see with this is that if you don't provide the lender with your documents, that process could take a day. It could take 2 days. It could potentially take 3 days, especially with being self-employed. So the challenge that I see with that is that if we run into a property that is a hot property, meaning that there's multiple offers on the property or that there's multiple buyers interested, us having the pre-approval or not having the letter of pre-approval could be the difference between us getting the deal and us not getting the deal. And the only reason I'm suggesting this over and over is that I have seen it happen where somebody doesn't get pre-approved until they find the right property. And by the time they find the right property, because the pre-approval process can take a day or two, and because usually that right property has competition, in some cases they end up missing out on it. And if they don't end up missing out on it, it just becomes a very stressful time. So what I would recommend, instead of waiting to find the right property, is I would recommend getting your documentation to the lender ASAP. Now, if you need help getting that documentation over to the lender, I can come by, I can pick it up. I could even drop it off at the lender's office if you need me to. I can get it scanned. I can take care of all of that for you. Now, I don't want to make it sound like, hey, look, like I don't want to show you properties or anything like that. All I'm saying is that I've seen this happen multiple times, and I strongly believe that if you follow this advice, it'll put you in a much better position to get the right property at the right price. Are you open to that?
Yeah. I took away some really good nuggets from that. I have had that conversation with him, and he's completely ignored it, but I took some other nuggets out from that I can still use and rehash the conversation.
For example?
And I've also mentioned the fact that some listings won't even let me show the home without the pre-approval.
Yeah.
And I said in front of his wife yesterday, yesterday's when our first time meeting, the wife. So now at least I was able to pin that against her so that she can force him to do a little bit of that work. She really wanted to see a house. I'm like, well, it's with the same group that we tried before, and they know we're not pre-approved, so they're not gonna let us in. And she got upset at him, and he lied to her and said, "Oh, I didn't know that. It's the first time I hear about it."
Yeah.
So,
yeah. In some cases, like I've had clients like that, and it's funny because as you get busier, you become more selective. When you're less busier, you can take more chances because you're not protecting your time as much. Now, in some cases, what I have done is if I feel like somebody's a good candidate, I will do a soft prequal on them. Like, hey, how much money did you net? Hey, what are your credit scores like? And just so you know, like I may even ask them like, hey, when you bought in La Jolla, were you already self-employed at that time? Or were you a worker? Why would I ask that question? That tells me that if he was already self-employed at that time, that would make it more likely that he's done his stuff right to be able to qualify again. So I may even do like a soft prequal to give myself more certainty, or have the lender do a soft prequal with him. Like I had a lender yesterday, and I'm like, hey, like he hasn't received any documents, but he jumped on the line with the buyer, and he asked him questions like, hey, look, how much did you make last year? Well, are you an employee? Are you self-employed? What does this do? What are your credit scores like? And the lender, after the end of the conversation, I feel confident enough based on that conversation that I can issue a pre-approval letter.
Yeah.
Did he review all the documents? No, but he asked the right question. Now, could it be different? Is it a solid pre-approval? No, it's not.
Yeah.
But I trust his judgment in some cases, So I think it's just a matter of like how strict you want to be on it. And also like, how likely do you think that the guy is? Usually borrowers who have bought before are usually very good candidates to purchase again.
Yeah.
Usually.
That was really useful, man. I took a lot of great nuggets away from there that I can use in the future and I can use with him presently.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you.
Awesome, bro.
Thanks, bro.
It's funny because all of us have challenges on different situations. And if we learn how to handle those situations or learn what to say, it puts us in a better position to actually get paid. And it puts us in a better position to actually make money, just by learning how to handle it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I want to solidify that commission on $2 to $3 million. Even if we find a house at $1.5 million, it's still a really good commission. And I feel like the potential's there. He's just one of these really bad procrastinators because I know how daunting it could be for a business owner to put
Wow.
together stocks.
Yeah. A drone? You go buy a drone?
And that's a good point too, because if he is if he's self-employed, it's going to take a while. And if that right property comes up, he might need a very specific lender too.
Yeah. And you may have to take the wife route, be like, hey, look, like, I want to help you guys out. Here's my fear. Maybe if you had the conversation with him, hey, here's my fear. Here's my fear. My fear is that, like, one, we may not be able to get into the right property if you guys like it. The second fear is that if we do get into that property, show them the money. Show them the money.
He's got a very specific need. They got 7 kids. They need a very large home. There's like 4 homes on the market that fit his needs. 2 of them are going to be an assignment. The rest of them can be financed. So there's a good potential he can lose out. He's going to piss off his wife. And that's what I wanted to bring up to him. But I was trying to figure out a way to do it very diplomatically.
Yeah.
And you gave me some.
Do you have a connection with the wife? Like conversations or no?
She just started texting me last night after meeting. So yeah, she wants to go see some properties on Friday and get to know some gated communities. So I wanted to mention it to her briefly without blowing him up.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the impetus to a big fight, but I want her to be aware that this is not going to happen without it.
Well, I wouldn't say, hey, I told him and he hasn't done it.
Correct.
I would stress the importance of it to her. So that same conversation that I had with you, I would have it with her, and then she'll be able to get the job done more than likely. Like, meaning like she'll do whatever she has to do to get it done, basically. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't like say, hey, I've told him like 3 times and he hasn't done it. I would just say, hey, look, here's the benefit of doing this. Here's a challenge that we're going to run into. Here's what it could lead where we miss out on the wrong property. I know. So when you go,
dude, I missed out on like a $1.5 million deal pretty early on in my career because I didn't like take responsibility. I forget what happened. Anyways, like the trying to be right sometimes, in that situation, like I told him, dude, I couldn't believe it. It was horrible at that timing.
Yeah, and this is good practice because it almost always happens with these self-employed individuals. They're so confident in their ability because they run a business that's probably pretty successful. They think they have everything in order, but the way that they structure the money and how they receive it sometimes is at odds with financing.
But even here's the thing: there's different loans for self-employed people that are like bank statement loans. I don't know if your lender offers those.
100%.
If he does, then even if he doesn't qualify traditionally, like I know business owners are willing to go with those bank statement loans. And I feel like they're becoming more popular right now because the difference between them and market rates isn't like as huge as it was when it was 3% and 8%,
Yeah, agreed.
So that's worst case scenario. So when making my decision, if I would continue working with an individual, I would factor all those things in and I would be like, what is the probability of them actually buying and them actually doing what needs to happen to get it done?
Yeah.
And if the probability is higher, I'm going to continue to do it, but I'm not going to be like, hey, I can't work with you,
Yeah. Because
the probability is high. So whenever I think about like, okay, what decision do I make? I think about it from a probability perspective.
Yeah.
Like it was funny when, or a worst case scenario perspective. And if I'm okay with like worst case scenario, I'm okay. Like I remember when I bought my apartment complex, there was like rent control coming in. And I was like, okay, what are the probabilities of me defaulting on this building? If I were to default and I lose $150,000, would I be okay with it? I was like, yes, I would. Okay, great. And now it's a great building, but sometimes you don't have all the answers that you need to make decisions. And you got to think about things from probabilities. And if you could think about things from probabilities, it allows you to make. I bought a building in an 11-unit apartment where there was no inspection and they were going to allow buyers to see it one time and they were waiting for everybody to see it. And I just removed my inspection contingency. And I
Typical home
drove by the building and I basically peeked in one of the units. I'm like, it doesn't look that bad. I can handle this. And I removed my inspection contingency because I'm like, and I asked the tenant, I'm like, hey, what do the other units look like? Do they look like yours? Are they worse? Are they better? He's like, no, they all look like mine. I'm like, good. I'm good with that. You know, I didn't have all the answers, but I felt comfortable enough based on the price that I was acquiring it at and based on the knowledge that I collected that the odds of me being happy with the deal were high based on what I saw in the exterior. And I was able to win that property when there's 18 other bids.
Yeah. That's a really interesting point, and that could be a topic of conversation on another call. How to transfer that thought process to a buyer who's accustomed to having inspection periods and appraisals, but they want to get into the investment field, and the only really real way to get a great, or not great, slightly better deal than retail is a wholesale, but they're unwilling to work with those parameters.
Yeah.
And so how do you transfer that conversation in your head to a buyer so they can think more like an investor, an experienced investor? I guess it comes with experience as well. If they're not experienced, it's going to be hard for them to think that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be very hard. When I work with investors, I usually try to work with investors that already are seasoned, basically, versus the new one. Because, like, it's funny, I have a past client, he's like, I want to do a flip. And he's like quadruple analytical. And I'm just like I sent them a deal. And it's like, I offered it. It was a deal that I bought, or I was buying. I offered it to him at a great price. He didn't do it. I flipped it for a great profit. And I was like, no, like, it's too much. Like, instead, I'd rather work with a seasoned one that's like, yeah, like, we know what we're doing. It's almost easier to find a seasoned investor than it would to try to transfer that belief, because it's a very difficult belief. And there's a lot of liability with trying to transfer that belief to somebody unexperienced, you know, like, there's a lot of liability. So instead of trying to transfer somebody, because if you do that, they're going to get into the escrow back. Oh my God, the plumbing is all shot, like, blah, blah, blah. You made me do this. Like, nah, rather work with somebody that's already comfortable with that, you know?
That's true. Very valid. Very valid.
Yeah. Cool. I think somebody else had a question.
Yes, I did.
What up?
Hi. I need to get a price reduction on one of my listings, and it's already been 80 days. Now we've set he's already known that that's not a price it's going to sell at. Like, even when we listed it, I knew it was overpriced. I did set expectations, but other than that, he just kind of wants to sit on it. But I know he's running out of time because he used to live there. And I know that he's going to reach it's going to be 2 years. Yeah. Yes.
When does that come up?
I believe by the end of the year.
Yeah. So we're getting close, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got everything has to almost if everything works out, he's probably going to be closed by August, September, maybe October, basically, which that's cutting it very, very. Have you had any offers, any second showings, any talks of offers? How many showings a week are you getting?
So at first we got a good amount of showings. Now it's only to one showing a week. We did have one offer that he didn't accept. He didn't even.
What was that offer
at? So we're listed at 536, and that offer was at about 520, 519.
Oh, wow.
But that's where we should be price wise. He's
really?
Yes, that's where we should be listed at, is 520.
536 to 520. So you're getting about 536 to 520. That would be about a 3% adjustment, basically, right? Got it. Do you think the market has transitioned a little bit since you had it on the market at all? Have you noticed that in your market at all?
So this is in the mountains, so I don't really know the market there that much, but there's a lot more inventory there. Yeah. So it's not like our market, and properties are sitting, but we had a lot of interest at first. It was just the price. Yeah.
So it may require a larger adjustment. If you're getting one showing a week, it may not be as simple as a 3%. It may be like a 5% adjustment, which would put you closer to like that $500,000 mark, which may be less than what he wants. But the price reduction conversation is, it's like, there's like 2 or 3 different ways of asking for it.
Wait,
One of
before
the
you go
ways-
to that real quick, sorry. Does he have to be closed before the 2-year mark hits? Does he have to be sold and closed before the 2 year?
100%. And there's no flexibility on that 2-year mark.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You go over 1 day or 2 days, the rule says you have to live in the property for 2 out of the last 5 years. It doesn't say a year, 11 months and 5 days or 25 days. Nope. If you go over by a day,
Okay.
gone.
So that's
have him talk to an accountant to make that very clear to him.
Yeah.
And then say, what did you say? How should I approach it now?
I even send out emails to Andrew all the time and just be like, hey, like, what about this situation? So the conversation goes something like, hey, I'm looking for Salima. Hey, Salima, Jose Morales, giving you a quick update on your property. Do you have a quick moment? Okay, great. So as of today, we've been on the market for a total of 80 days. Now, during the 80 days, we've had about 25 showings, which is good. It means that what we're doing to market and sell the property is working. Now, out of the 25 showings, my only concern or my only hesitation is that the showing activity has decreased substantially in the last 3 weeks, meaning in the last 3 weeks, we've only had 1 showing per week. Now, when a property isn't selling, there's only one of 3 reasons why that happens. Do you know what they are?
What are they?
Okay. So either A, the condition of the property, meaning buyers are taking a look at the pictures online and they don't feel that the condition, they feel that there's something wrong with the property. Now, I wouldn't say that there's anything wrong with the condition of the property, would you?
No.
Okay. 2 is the marketing. Now, meaning like your agent's not doing a good job marketing the property. I would say that's not an issue, meaning like we are doing the same thing that we have utilized, the same marketing plan that thousands of agents have used to market thousands of properties or sell thousands of properties across the United States. So I would say that that's not the problem. The third reason why properties don't sell is the price. So Salima, if there's nothing wrong with the condition, and obviously we're implementing the same marketing plan that has been used by thousands of agents to sell thousands of homes across the nation, what do you think is stopping the property from selling if it's not those 2?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the interest rates are going to go down and then, we're going to have more interest probably. I mean, I know the interest rates are high right now.
Yeah. So it sounds like you could see that the price is the issue, but you're thinking like, hey, maybe the price will be good if interest rates come down.
Yes.
What if I told you that it's very unlikely for interest rates to come down over the next 6 months? What would you say?
I know we're getting closer to the election, so that's what I've heard.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, like, do you always believe everything that the government tells you? Like, meaning if the government says like I'll give you an example. When the government said that inflation was it's transitory, did you believe them when they said that?
No.
Okay. They said that interest rates weren't going to go up because inflation was transitory and then it went away. Right?
Yeah.
Then what did they say at the beginning of this year? They said that interest rates were going to drop how many times?
Well, they said at least 3 times.
3 to 4 times. How many times have they dropped?
I don't know. I don't see them going down.
Well, they haven't dropped them at all. Right? So why do you think they haven't dropped the interest rates?
I don't know. You tell me.
They haven't been able to get inflation under control.
Mm.
So in order for interest rates to drop, they have to get inflation under control. And if they can't get inflation under control, it's going to be very difficult for them to drop the rates. Now, I know what you're thinking, like election year, maybe they'll drop the rates to help the Democratic Party, right? That's what you're thinking?
Right.
To stimulate the economy? Well,
Right.
the Fed and the president are two different branches, meaning the Fed is supposed to act independently and not give any favoritism to any specific politics or any specific party. Now, here's my concern, and I'm going to send you a picture of a chart. Okay, I'm going to send you a picture of currency in circulation. So what this chart tells you is how much money has been printed over the last 100 years. Now, what I want you to look back at this chart, and if we're looking at it right now, is take a look at the chart as to how much money was printed in the 1980s. You see how there's one square that was printed in the 1980s. Now, if there was only one square printed in the 1980s and we had inflation at 14, 15, 16%, take a look at how many blocks of money have been printed since the year 2000. 3 blocks. So my concern with them being able to get inflation under control is that in the 1980s, they only printed this amount of money. Today, they printed out that amount of money. In the 1980s, inflation was here with this amount of money. And now we have this amount of money. And supposedly they're going to decrease interest rates. What if the government was saying, what if the government was just saying that they were going to drop interest rates to keep the economy stimulated so that it didn't crash completely?
Hmm.
Meaning like they're saying that to keep optimism high. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because if they said we're not dropping interest rates, people may not be as apt to buy or sell property because right now they have the hope that they'll be able to potentially refinance at a lower price or at a lower rate. So let me ask you a question. How much of a risk taker are you?
I'm not a risk taker.
Okay. So here's my other concern. We're coming up on that 2 out of the last 5 year mark. How long are you willing to wait, hoping that interest rates drop? What is your game plan if interest rates don't drop? Can I make a recommendation?
Yeah,
Let's not gamble. Let's adjust the price today and let's move forward and let's get this property sold for you.
Hey.
It's a lot of raw thoughts in that, so it's got to be polished up.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of raw thoughts in that.
Regarding that, Jose, for Salima, if after having the conversation about the price drop and telling or coming to an amount, perhaps maybe by her saying it or maybe by him becoming aware of it and disclosing it himself, is it then a good opportunity to say either express explicitly to him or maybe in the background after you hang up, go back to that 520 and say, hey, is your 520 buyer still active? Because if he's okay with 500, you come back with 520, he's obviously going to sign it at 520 now.
Yeah. Yeah, we usually do that. We're always, whenever somebody submits an offer, we're checking in with them all the time, Salima, to see if they still have any interest on that property. So I don't know if you've done that already or if they still have any interest on the property, but it might be a situation where they may consider it. The reason I think that it's going to need a larger adjustment is I think the market adjusted a little bit, at least in Southern California.
The problem with that offer was a VA loan, and this property does have an addition that's not permitted. So there's a chance that the VA loan, would not get approved on that property as well.
Got
now
it.
they had spoken to the lender saying that it might not be an issue, but
So once again, what is the probability of it being an issue? Like, so it comes down to like you speaking with the lender and being like, hey, look, what are the odds of this being an issue?
Yeah.
So like, is that a thought in your head or is that reality?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I had them check and they said it wasn't an issue. So yes, I guess it's.
So if they're saying it's not an issue, we took an FHA offer on a little bit of a picture and we wrote a clause in there saying buyer agrees to do any lender require repair. If lender asks for any repairs, buyer agrees to do any lender require repairs by a licensed and bonded contractor with workers' compensation insurance. Meaning that if your seller's concern is selling it as is, that was a clause that allowed the seller to do it as is, because we didn't know if the lender was going to call out anything or not, you know? So sometimes we create certain dialogues or stories in our head that are on a false premise that aren't necessarily true. I've had properties that I think the appraiser's going to call out something and they don't. And I've had properties where I'm like, no, it's great. And they do.
Right.
It's somewhat subjective. Not 100%. There's things that are obvious, but in some cases it's somewhat subjective. Meaning some appraisers are more sticklers for things than others, you know?
Right.
Now, what I know is that sometimes, from what I remember, even with FHA offers, if there was something done, one of the things that they look for is if it was done in a workman's-like manner. Meaning, like, if it looks like it was done very low quality, it may create more issues as opposed to a workman's-like manner. Meaning that it looks high quality, even if it's unpermitted. They may not give it value, but they may not call it out. But that was, from what I remember, what our lender would say. Was it done in a workman's-like manner?
Yeah. In my case, it's been, does it have a stove or oven? Does it have, that's pretty much the clincher there. If it has that, then if it can be removed, then it works. And so just removing it solves the problem. And if it doesn't have, then there's no problem at all. And that's helped me close a lot of those VA deals.
Yeah, even over here, like removing the thing. But I don't think this one you're referring to, like, in addition, that has any like separate living quarters, right, Salima?
No, it doesn't have any.
No, it's like an added bonus patio, basically, with no.
Well, no. I'm sorry. It is a separate living area and bathroom. Yeah.
But no, like a kitchen, stove, or anything like that.
No.
Okay.
I've never really heard of a lender asking for a permit.
Yeah. I think that's I would go back to that buyer and basically roll the dice. You might be your chances of getting in an escrow might be higher with that buyer than anybody else.
Yeah, at 520.
Yep.
But should she have the conversation about lowering the price first?
I would check with that person first to see if they're interest, and if they are, then I would just bring them back, that buyer, to see if they're still interested. And it would just be a different conversation with the seller. The conversation would be like, hey, look, like I'm noticing the marketplace shifting. I'm noticing that more price reductions. I'm noticing more inventory. Maybe at the beginning when we received this offer, this wasn't a good offer. I genuinely believe that this is a very good offer now. My concern is that if we don't move forward with this offer, that we could end up at a lower price in the future.
When is that 2-year mark up?
I think December.
I think it's October.
October. Oh, October. Yeah. It's getting close.
Dude, have him talk to an accountant ASAP.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to do that today.
Yeah. Because otherwise there's going to be huge tax implications.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Later, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jose.
Bye.